You need to cross the street to buy groceries. Simple enough, right? But the crosswalk is a quarter mile down the road because this particular street, 6 lanes, 45 miles per hour speed limit, wasn't designed with crossing in mind. So you walk the extra distance, wait through 2 light cycles because the pedestrian phase lasts exactly 4 seconds, then sprint across 80 feet of asphalt while drivers gun it the moment their light turns green. You make it to the store, buy your groceries, and realize you get to do this whole dance again on the way home. Congratulations, you just experienced what it's like when a city treats walking like a crime. This isn't bad luck. This isn't poor planning. This is American cities working exactly as designed. From Houston to Phoenix to Tampa, the same pattern repeats. Roads built for speed, crosswalks space for cars, buildings set back behind seas of parking. Every time you step outside a vehicle, you're entering a landscape that views your existence as an inconvenience to be managed, not a person to be accommodated. And the more you notice this pattern, the more you realize none of it happened by accident. Let me show you what I mean. Take Houston, America's 4th largest city and famously the biggest city without zoning. Sounds like a free-for-all, right? Except Houston doesn't need traditional zoning because it has something better. A web of parking minimums, setback requirements, and development codes that mandate car-dependent sprawl more effectively than any zoning law ever could. The result is a city where a grocery store has to provide 4 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet of floor area. Not because customers demanded it, because the code demands it. So you get strip malls floating in parking oceans, connected by arterial roads designed like highways, Westheimer Road, Bissonnette Street, 5 or 6 lanes wide, with traffic moving at highway speeds past an endless blur of Walgreens and Subways and car dealerships. Try walking along Westheimer, and you'll quickly discover that the sidewalk disappears without warning, forcing you into the grass, or into traffic, or just giving up entirely. The city didn't forget to build sidewalks. It built a road system where sidewalks are afterthoughts. But here's what makes this really beautiful, in the most twisted way possible. Phoenix took the Houston model and applied it to a desert where walking outside can literally kill you 4 months of the year. Orlando took it and built a tourist economy where visitors fly in from around the world to experience the magic of 6-lane stroads lined with chain restaurants. Dallas perfected the art of downtown highways that cut the urban core into isolated islands of office towers and parking craters. The consistency isn't coincidence. It's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, whose trip generation manual became the Bible for parking requirements in cities across America. It's AASHTO design standards that prioritized vehicle throughput over human survival. It's decades of federal highway funding that rewarded cities for building roads designed like interstates, then dropping them right through neighborhoods where people actually live. If this sounds familiar, comment where you live and what this looks like in your city, because I guarantee you've got your own version of Westheimer Road, your own 4-second crosswalk, your own grocery store surrounded by more parking than actual store. And this is where it gets really weird. Cities will spend millions engineering intersections to shave 3 seconds off your commute, then force you to walk an extra quarter mile because the crosswalk doesn't line up with where people actually want to go. They'll install push-button crossing signals that make you wait through multiple light cycles, as if crossing the street is a special favor you're requesting rather than a basic human activity. They'll build transit stops next to 6-lane roads with no shade, no benches, and no safe way to reach them, then wonder why nobody uses transit. It's like watching a game where all the rules were written by people who never walk anywhere. Wide turning radii so cars can take corners at speed, even though that creates longer crossing distances for pedestrians. Signal timing optimized for vehicle flow, even though that means pedestrians stand exposed on median strips waiting for their turn. Lane widths designed for highway speeds, even though these roads pass directly by schools and shopping centers where people are trying to live their lives. Take Tampa, where Hillsborough Avenue cuts a 6-lane scar through neighborhoods that were walkable before the road engineers got to them. Or Orlando, where International Drive became a tourist attraction specifically because it represents everything wrong with American road design. A high-speed arterial lined with destinations that are theoretically walkable but practically unreachable, because crossing the road requires a death wish and a stopwatch. But here's the catch. The same cities that make walking miserable will turn around and complain about traffic congestion, as if forcing everyone to drive everywhere was just something that happened naturally. They'll spend billions widening roads to reduce traffic, which induces more driving, which creates more traffic, which leads to more road widening. It's a feedback loop that would be hilarious if it wasn't swallowing entire city budgets and literally killing people, because that's what this actually costs. Pedestrian deaths in America increased 50% between 2010 and 2020 because people suddenly forgot how to walk, but because we kept building roads designed to kill them. When you design a street for 45 miles per hour's traffic and then wonder why pedestrians keep getting hit, you're not dealing with a mysterious phenomenon. You're dealing with physics. Cars going 45 miles per hour kill pedestrians. Cars going 25 miles per hour usually don't. But engineering standards prioritize the 45 miles per hour speed over the pedestrian survival rate. And the beautiful part is that none of this saved any money. All those parking minimums that force businesses to pave huge lots, that's expensive land that could have been used for more businesses, more housing, more things people actually want. All those wide arterial roads designed for peak traffic flow, they're incredibly expensive to build and maintain. And they cut property values on both sides by turning neighborhoods into highway corridors. So you get the worst of both worlds. Expensive infrastructure that makes daily life miserable. Cities spend like they're building Disneyland and deliver the customer experience of a freight yard. And because car infrastructure is so expensive to maintain, they can't afford to fix it properly, which is why you're dodging potholes on your 6-lane strode while the sidewalk crumbles or just ends without explanation. This connects directly to why housing costs so much. When zoning codes require every apartment building to include 2 parking spaces per unit, you're not just mandating parking. You're mandating that a significant chunk of every housing development gets dedicated to car storage instead of human habitation. When codes require commercial buildings to sit behind massive parking lots, you're spreading destinations farther apart, which makes land more expensive and neighborhoods less convenient. The math is straightforward but brutal. Parking minimums can add $50,000 or more to the cost of each apartment unit. And density limits mean you can't build enough housing on expensive urban land. And when everything is spread out and car dependent, you've eliminated the possibility of the small, incremental housing that used to make cities affordable, the garage, apartments, the corner stores with housing above, the small apartment buildings that fit into existing neighborhoods. Instead, you get 2 choices: expensive urban cores where walking is possible but housing costs a fortune, or cheap suburban sprawl where housing is affordable until you add in the cost of owning and maintaining multiple cars to access basic services. Either way, you're paying extra for the privilege of living in a country that made car ownership mandatory and then acted surprised when transportation became the 2nd largest household expense after housing. But here's what makes me optimistic, in a completely deranged way. The system is so obviously broken that even the people who designed it are starting to admit it doesn't work. Cities are finally eliminating parking. Hartford. They're discovering that when you stop requiring massive parking lots, developers build more housing and businesses, and people still find places to park their cars. Complete Streets policies are spreading, which means new roads have to consider pedestrians and cyclists, not just vehicles. It's a low bar designing infrastructure that doesn't kill people who aren't in cars, but is progress. Some cities are even retrofitting their arterial roads, adding crosswalks at reasonable intervals, narrowing lanes, reducing speed limits, revolutionary stuff like assuming people might want to cross the street without walking half a mile out of their way. The beautiful thing is that the alternative isn't theoretical. You can visit cities that work differently. You can see what happens when streets are designed for people, when buildings face sidewalks instead of parking lots, when you can walk to a grocery store without requiring tactical planning and a first aid kit. These places exist, they're economically successful, and people fight to live in them. American cities aren't broken because we don't know how to build better ones. They're broken because for 70 years, we chose to build them this way. The parking minimums, the arterial roads, the separated land uses, these were policy choices. And policy choices can be changed. Every crosswalk that makes you wait through 3 light cycles is a decision someone made. Every sidewalk that ends abruptly is a priority someone established. Every grocery store floating in a parking ocean is a code requirement someone wrote down and someone else could rewrite. The next time you're standing on a median strip watching cars fly by at 50 miles per hour while you wait for 4 seconds of crossing time, remember, this isn't natural. This isn't inevitable. This is just what happens when cities are designed by people who never have to walk anywhere. And if you're tired of cities being built wrong, subscribe. Because the more people notice the pattern, the harder it becomes to pretend this is just how cities have to work.